Olwaleero tuli ne Dr. Lina Zedriga ono nga ye Vice President wa Kyagulanyi Center mu Robert Bobi Wine mu Northern Uganda. Dr. Lina Zedriga musanyufu byansusso agamba nti Mwai Museveni very soon agenda kuba arrested olw'ebikolobero byakoze ebingi ku bannayuganda. Dr. Lina Zedriga gwe tuli naye lunaku olwaleero nga tukubaganya ku nsonga enkulu eziri mu ggwanga Uganda okusingira ddala ez'okutobola eddembe ly'obuntu, ekiwamba abantu, ekitulugunya, ekitta abantu n'ebirala bingi. Dr. Lina Zedriga mukakafu nti omusango Kyagulanyi Center mu Robert Bobi Wine gwe yatutte mu Koti Yensi Yona ogwakkiriziddwa nti no gulimu eggumba muli n'abajulizi abasoba 215. Mwai Museveni gwa kumukka muvi era mujja kulaba mutaddeko ekibaluwa kye bakuntumye ate bamubaka ejjeeke. Dr. Lina Zedriga agamba nti Uganda wetuuse esaana bannayuganda twesitukiremu tutaase tununule ensi yaffe okugijja mu mikono gy'abagamba nti baagiwabya dda. Ensonga eriwo nti constitution mu Uganda tekyakola, democracy mu Uganda taliimu era yesaana Mwai Museveni okusobola kugibwa mu ntebe olwo ate democracy w'ekimmemmete alyoka alabibweko Uganda bulijjo bwe muloota obulosi ntandike okubirabako. Kale nsaba muneegatteko mu buwombofu bw'ekika ekyawaggulu tufune conversation eno ne Dr. Lina Zedriga ku byayogera ebiri mu ggwanga Uganda ebikyamu era tugenda kukola tutya okulaba nga tuva mu mbeera eyo gye tulimu.
This book has 14 chapters. It's 13 chapters. Yeah, and it's really nice to read. I actually picked it and I was in a taxi and I was reading through it and it was taking me through like I was on a journey, being taken on a journey on a bumpy road by Professor. By the way, I'm also the vice chairperson of the Kanyahamba Foundation, and by choice. There are so many things that I resonate with in this nice book. But then I will restrict myself in the interest of time to the unacceptable face of the NRM party at page 84. And the precursor to that actually is where Professor says, in fact, what I like so much is where he says, before 1986, let me quote you, Professor, and since then, President Museveni and NRM leadership have given lip service to the rule of law, democracy, transparency, and accountability. In practice, however, they have done the reverse. And what is worse, deliberately. When I was a schoolboy, lying was a vice. But under the NRM party, it is a virtue. Yeah. I'm quoting him. So it is normal, it is okay to lie under the NRM. That is the unacceptable face of the NRM party. To the extent when Kakwenza is tortured, a minister comes out and opens his mouth and he tweets on his social media a naked lie that these days the generation is obsessed with the drugs and identities. All the marks on Kakwenza's back could easily have been tattoos. Can you believe that? And here, Professor rightfully put it. Then, I also would like us to share that Professor rightfully puts it down on pen and paper with the the bravery at that age. He says the policies of NRM party, however misguided or damaging, are the ultra and omega imperatives of governance in Uganda. Lo and behold, you just see the prints of it implemented, whether it's the local government, whether it's the lip service to the women in Uganda, you bring them. It reminds me of one time where one of the leaders in Uganda says, the NRM governs you like they have already eaten the food, it is meat, Definitely, at the time I grew up, meat was very rare. We used to eat meat only on Christmas Day. Forget where these days you have meat for breakfast and meat for lunch and in all kinds of names. So they have the food on a sania, big sania. They finish to eat, and then they grab a few of you, and then rub your lips on the sania, and then show it out and says, "Please, you have been eating with us," when actually you have not even tasted that food. This professor has brought out so well. And another that resonates with us, that, you know, I like his humor, that since then, a lot of water has gone under the Uganda political bridge. The president has gained absolute power under the NRM party flag. President Museveni exercises that power absolutely. Anyone standing in his way, is branded an enemy, and he's liable to be crushed. Lo and behold, you have all, whether in terms of the politically active people like you. How many times our families are afraid and friends are afraid that we will be, you know, is it on? People are afraid. Political identity in opposition now is like a death sentence. Your friends, do not call me. Please, Lina, we are with you, but do not call us. Because, you know, we fear the risk. Lo and behold, it is not only for us who speak. Professor has shown us that everybody is targeted, so long as, even within the NRM, so long as you do not utter anything to correct Museveni's excesses. Now the sun is, I don't know what. So I want to say that in this book, Professor makes you to reflect whether to continue to keep quiet and be led to the slaughter like a sheep, or to speak. And then people know your position and look out to you. And finally, which is related to the faith, yeah? Which is related to the faith, the unacceptable face of the NRM party, is that President Museveni believes that government can do anything it wants. Here, page 63, he believes that government can do anything it wants, provided it has the power and the numbers to do it. But do they still have the numbers? Do they still have the numbers? He is now more with the sun. And the Butulikas. He and the NRM now govern Uganda by law and not under the law. In this context, the NRM party, with its greatest number of MPs in the legislature, then is now depicted and held out as the supreme sovereignty of Uganda. I want to end by quoting one time when the Deputy Attorney General currently was, we belong to some group of Catholic lawyers or faith-based lawyers. And when he was appointed, they had a guest of honor, Chris Rwakasisi, who is also the presidential advisor. And when Christ the King, that was not so long ago, but before I became politically, you know. So that was 2020. And then Chris had this to tell us, said, you people, the lawyers, you may occupy any powerful offices, your worship, what, state attorney and so on. But let me share with you one thing. At the time I was in the ministry, we were in a government, of what a government. I felt so powerful, and I felt His Excellency Obote was God the Father Almighty, and I was His Son Jesus Christ, because I could I could order for anything, anything. My words were final. That was the level at which he was trusted by the president. He was sharing with us. But when that power was lost, before he knew it, he was kneeling before prison wardens, squatting before them. So use your power, we in faith. And he finally advised, your power does not, your power comes from an almighty being. You must respect it, and you must respect people. You must consult people. You must not rely on your power, because your power is powerlessness. That is what Professor has enabled us in this book to reflect on. And I believe in it very strongly. And indeed, the defeat of President Museveni is for us to know that people like Professor Kanyahamba have the audacity, the courage, the duty to inform in writing the dirt that is going on, that has gone on for 36 years. This is evidence ab initio. Thank you so much, Professor. Well done. And I would urge everybody to read, translate this book.
Before I leave to the next speaker, still, it brings up a point, a quote actually, what someone was mentioning about that all cats have 4 legs, still on the face. My dog has 4 legs, therefore my dog is a cat. What are your insights about that? Briefly. So, yes, you. Yeah. I brought up an insight about that quote. Still, it's about the face of the NRM party.
Yes.
Which was the topic you discussed.
Yes.
He says that it's the last article actually.
Yes, I've seen it.
All cats have 4 legs.
Yeah.
My dog has 4 legs. Therefore, my dog is a cat.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to share what you think about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's actually the conclusion. It's a very powerful quote. And it's a very powerful quote which starts by actually another quote where he says that where there is a will, corruption shall surely be defeated. Where there is a will. But where you are telling me, IGG, that please go slow, these are investors, these are not corrupt people. Eh? And then you recycle one from the office of the Prime Minister, the most corrupt, and then you take to Ministry of Gender, you recycle blatantly. What does that say? And then also he says another description of the NRM party. All cats have 4 legs. My dog has 4 legs. Therefore, my dog is a cat. My dog is a cat. It is not a dog. Eh? And there are so many faces of this. These are not corrupt people. These are investors. Don't scare them. No. That one, do not touch him. Do not touch him. From the OPM, we have been there, where there have been all these supplies of the corruption scandals, whether it is the plastic pangas to what were those called? The stones in the those that were sent to the refugees and the internally displaced persons. The food with the glass. That's when we started calling the world food problems. You know? Yes, I was up north, and it was OPM doing all these things. It was the OPM supplying all kinds of the rubbish, and then people, and I didn't know they had even exported it to Libya. Thanks be to Professor that, yes. So, to me, recycling people, not only the corrupt people, rewarding violence. I am the one who brutalized the opposition, especially Nupi in northern Uganda. So I deserve to be the Speaker of Parliament. I am the one who brutalized the people in Kasese. So I need to be taken on promotion to Somalia. And that's what has been happening. Cleansing the most crude people, rewarding violence, rewarding corruption. And I'm telling you, what else can we say? Professor has given us a rope, a very long rope, by the way, to hang NRM and to hang Museveni and to hang Muhozi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Toko Godwin, there are 3 points that are actually coming up in this book about the defeat of President Museveni. One, he talks about corruption, and he goes deep to explain how the corruption has already eaten up the office of the Prime Minister. He talks about the IGG, how both the offices are, saying there is corruption in this office. This office is the dean of thieves. That is what he explains. And still, he talks about the police. The president is publicly quoted to have said that police is the most corrupt institution in the country. And still, this is the institution that is supposed to maintain law and order.
Yes.
Now, as young people, what do you think should be done as young people to solve those problems of corruption in the institutions?
So first of all, I am afraid that corruption is like the motor that holds the NRM together. So if there was less corruption between 1986 and say 2005, perhaps that was because it was being less exposed. People were still under the euphoria that we have a new government and they were trying to work hard to ensure that it succeeds. Or perhaps because there was less to steal. Yeah, any of those. Now, without corruption, just as a by the way, without corruption and torture, the NRM cannot survive. Yeah, you know that the NRM buys support, and increasingly after 2005, it has become more and more expensive buying people. So the NRM, I like calling it the NRA. The NRA will always buy people, and it will buy them corruptly because it will use money that is meant for doing other things. When you look at the budget that is passed nowadays, all the money that goes to, that is termed as classified budget, that should be worrying us. Yeah, it's classified mainly not because it is going to health, but always because it is going to the army, where the president is the commander-in-chief. Well, sometimes corruption happens right within our eyes. You see it, but you can't say that that is corruption, because even when it happens there, it is covered, it is given a good name. In the Bible, there is a story where Jesus says, you can see a corpse, you can see a grave that is well painted, and you're like, wow, that is a very nice grave. Doesn't change the fact that what is in there is rot. Yeah, that is the reality of the NRM. So for as long as the NRM stays in power, just expect more corruption, because they will need to buy people more and more. They will need to break the bank each time. Yeah. So towards the elections, they'll buy cars for these musicians instead of building hospitals. They'll all of a sudden they're appointing everyone a presidential advisor because they're buying their loyalty, and that is corruption in and of itself. When they talk of corruption, most times we think of people stealing money physically. It's not that is not corruption. That is corruption, but this too is corruption. Rigging elections, all those are signs of corruption that we've discussed. Now, to the kind of corruption that the professor is talking about, he shows you how the NRA, despite trying hard, because it shows you that perhaps there was a will at some point to fight these things, and then along the way the will went and they moved on. Let me tell you, what I have come to appreciate is that President Mr. Museveni sold his soul to remain the president of Uganda. He threw the kitchen sink, yeah, literally, to remain the president of Uganda. So because he needs to stay president, that is the only thing that he can get. He needs to do whatever it takes, yeah. Whether he crashes the economy, whether our image internationally is thrown in gutters, he doesn't mind. For him, it's about staying in power. So with corruption now, the only thing that helps him stay in power, because he needs the money, because he needs to allow some level of corruption. And the police is corrupt because he needs to allow certain level of corruption in the police. Under Mobutu, when Mobutu was president in Zaire, there was an article, I think it was Article 95 in the Constitution. It was not written, but everyone knew it. Because when the soldiers were demanding for more pay, he always told them that we have guns. So the police more or less in Uganda feel like, even when they are paid little, yeah, it's a privilege being a police officer, because you can always stop a boda man, find a problem with him, instead of taking him to court, or in fact, you may not even have a problem. You can create one, because most of them don't know the law. You can scare them and say, oh, you've not done this, you're doing that, and then give me 20,000, give me 50,000. That money is what keeps the policeman going. That money is the one that through it he affords school fees, because his salary is very minimal. Yeah, it's also laughable that we pay everybody else a lot. We pay Jenny from a lot of money, pay the Bank of Uganda government a lot of money, and all this, because we don't want them to be corrupt. But the men with the guns are paid peanuts, because, and somehow we think that it's okay to pay them the peanuts and they will do the work miraculously. And also related to that is you hear cases of police officers hiring out their guns. I'm not making up this has been in the media, hiring up their guns to criminals to go and use them and make money. So all these things are signs of a failed system, when a system that is crashing under its own weight. So they are deliberate, they are not by mistake. I see my friends saying that the NRM should go back to its ways. The NRM ways have always been corruption. There has not been a different way. If it is more now, it is more now because we are seeing it more, you understand? Or we become vigilant. Yeah, we become vigilant with things like social media. A story that happens in Machinge can reach the farthest corner of my village in Maracha in a matter of seconds. So because of that, now all of us are in the know, we can always see. And I think it's upon Ugandans, Act up. Ugandans, this is our country. Yeah. Ivan Bowe started well and he said all these problems started from the early days of the NRA. But we want to believe that these problems actually didn't even start there. The problem started from as far back as 1894 when Uganda was colonized. We were pushed, understand, and the system was created that benefited those at the top. At that time, it was the British who were benefiting from the system. So throughout the time they were benefiting, it was a system of corruption fueled by them to support and sustain their stay in Uganda. When Obote came to power, because the system again favored a few individuals, they were corrupt at the expense of everyone else. When Amin came, it is the same system. So it's a time that one of these days Ugandans should assume power themselves, understand it, take charge of whatever is going on in their country, and they can be more respected. Even by African standards, the corruption in Uganda is very unacceptable.
Okay, now as young people, do we have a robust brand? Because you see young people are raising up, fighting the same vices.
Yes, it's important that we give credit to whoever is fighting the mess in whichever way they are doing. Yeah, people tend to say that you're all on social media and what. When someone does it on social media, that is okay. Maybe that's what they can do that way. We need to first encourage them, but we need to also tell the young people to become more vigilant. We need to wake up. We need to get to the reality of these things. Don't sit down. If a man has lived, Uganda's life expectancy last time I checked, it's about 63. It's about it should be there somewhere in the 60s. So if a man has lived to about 75, he has really lived, yeah, very, very long compared to Ugandan standards. So if a young person of 25, 30, you shouldn't let these guys mess up this country for you. Always take up the steps and always ensure that you do whatever you can to make this country better. Because you have a bigger stake in this country. Normally speaking, young people live longer than old people. I'm not saying that old people always die fast. Yeah, old people sometimes live longer than the younger. Parents have sometimes buried their children, but in African society, we say that is the wrong thing. Yeah, should be the other way around. The children should normally bury the parents. So, yeah, so it should always be the other way around. So the younger people have a bigger stake in this country. When you see these things happening, when they eat your money, when they eat the money that is meant to fund kids at Makerere, and then we all look on and say, oh, that's the problem, Makerere. No, tomorrow we are going to be together, and these things are going to affect us all, because at the end of the day, Uganda is for us all. We don't want to have a minister tomorrow who is corrupt because someone ate the money that should have facilitated lecturers at Makerere, which compounds the problem.
Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing those insights. Now, in the next 10 minutes, we are finishing in 10 minutes from now. 5 minutes for discussing the last topic, and we have 5 minutes for the questions, and then we finish, if there are questions for those who are online. Now, Solomon, I want you to talk about, actually, you're going to be the first one, but I'll invite any speaker who wants to talk about this. And this is page 95. Is succession a viable plan for Uganda and the role of everyone? So I would love to invite all the panelists who would wish to comment about this to share their insights, but beginning with you, Solomon.
Thank you very much, George. To begin with, I'll quote one of the people I've admired of high intellectualism in Africa, Chinua Achebe. Chinua Achebe, in his work called Things Fall Apart, he seems to suggest that when things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Anarchy is loosed upon the world. In any case, we are trying to look at the defeat of General Museveni. It is on record. My brother, the Right Honorable Speaker of DP here, cited President Museveni on 4th December. The same thing happens to my brother Ivan Bowe, admitting that it is true. We have corruption. We have corrupt officials. They have crippled public services. You know, what Ugandans fail to understand is when we have bad governance in this country that is checked with such vices that cannot be fought or cannot be checked by the leaders in power, we can never get absolute or good services like in public health services, the education sector. It is totally down. So in the incident that President Museveni admits that he has been defeated by this war, and the people, because we have 3 mainstream battalions in this war of corruption, as pointed out in page 96 of this book, The Defeat of President Museveni. The first is the Inspector General of Government, followed by the Office of the Prime Minister, followed by the President's Office. On so many occasions, the Prime Minister has come out to confess that actually I love one thing about this new Prime Minister. Her arrogancy exposes the true face of governance in Uganda. In her arrogancy, she confesses that she has come to check the corrupt officials in the NRM, most specifically the OPM's office. OPM's office. Put her aside. Look at Nakalema. Colonel Nakalema, before she was reshuffled, she appeared on national television. She confessed to the world that some of her frustrations in fighting corruption are the corrupt officials themselves, the mafias, who the president himself has shielded. Go to the office of the IGG, Betty Kamya. Betty Kamya is saying that, well, I am going to introduce lifestyle audits. President Museveni is saying you will scare off our investors. So the new trend in Uganda is corruption is investment. That's what he's trying to communicate. But putting that aside, it is on record. President Museveni has chosen power at the cost of justice in this country. President Museveni has chosen, has decided to protect the corrupt at the cost of what he promised Ugandans in 1986. More so the Addis Ababa speech he makes that brings him at the limelight. Well, I believe that the appointment of Jim Muhwezi and other people that are on record for corruption cases that they have not answered. I don't know whether we young people that make up the biggest percentage in this country, 75.8%, are really content with making us toys. President Museveni has made us toys. Put aside Jim Muhwezi. Jim Muhwezi has an unanswered question. He says, well, be Minister of Security. It is on record, Professor Kanyihamba confesses in that book. And it is also on record that the minister, Kahinda Otafire, openly comes out to admit in an incident, if you read that book, I think it's around page 29, Professor Kanyihamba had been given a check to go for treatment abroad by the judiciary, a check of 10 million. What happens is because the check came through the Minister of Justice, Kahinda Otafire. Kahinda Otafire, we don't know how. The banks have not come out to explain. The IGG has not come out to explain. And this has gone to sections like the complaint has been lodged into people like the OPM, by then it was Rohakana Rukunda. They have not come out to discipline Kahinda Otafire or to question him. How do you forge? Because this is forgery, this is fraudulent, false obtainance of money. They do not come out to hold Kahinda Otafire accountable. I find it so ironical that President Museveni is securing our future. In the event that President Museveni has confirmed there is corruption in this country, in the event that Nabanja openly, arrogantly confirms that she has come to fight the corrupt in OPM, and Nakalema is saying, I'm frustrated because of the corrupt protected by the president. Actually, these are some of the reasons why she was reshuffled and the public was lied that she has been given a scholarship to go and study abroad. They told us abroad. So in the incident that the IGG, OPM, and the office of the president have failed to fight corruption for 36 years, President Museveni tells us at the steps of parliament in 1986, mine is not a mere change. It is a fundamental change. The bigger question we have as young people, what happened for 36 years? If he has failed in 36 years, do we believe he can make it in 5 years? Impossible. President Museveni is that devil talked about in the Bible that came to steal, kill, and destroy. He has stolen from Ugandans because Ugandans have been taking care of President Museveni in State House, buying the guns and batons used by his son, Mohozi, to torture Ugandans that practice their rights. So I'm concluding. So in any case that he has stolen from us, he has killed very many futures of young people. I believe this book is a mantle passed on to the young people. It is high time as young people we started to demand for change. We entertained the succession talk about President Museveni's demise. Because if we do not do it now, I don't think there is any right time. 2026 is not any far. But
Professor mentions about the Bozi project in the same book. You're talking about the succession plan. He mentions about him accusing the new envoys being young people. Like he talked about Magombe, the Honorable Magombe as a new envoy. Both of them are young people. So what do you see in that level of the Bozi project? You're saying succession. Are you okay with that?
I'm actually convicted to believe that the sense of young people has lost the sense of the word young people has lost meaning. We all know Honorable has served this country, and I was happy when she resigned, believing that she has done her part for this country. She went to explore her ability elsewhere, which I believe President Museveni should also put down the mantle. If he believes and his fanatics that he has served this country, he should put down. He should actually resign. He should step down and entertain the talk about young people. Let us ask. First of all, I would ask myself, who is a young person? The National Youth Council Act defines a young person as one who is between the age of 18 and 30 years. When you go to elsewhere, the UN documents and African Union, they define a young person as one between the age of 18 and 35. So I do not know whether the people you're citing for me on the appointment list of President Museveni, there is one that falls in that age group. We are living in limbo.
But that is what is in the that is what is in the book.
This is what. Well, this is. I don't think that is what is in the book. I don't think that is what is in the book. Well, he tries to refer to the resignation of Betty. Actually, the resignation of Betty Bigombe and the reappointment of Betty Bigombe and so many other people. And to me, I want to conclude by saying that President Museveni should actually prepare joining his generation in retirement and leave young people like today we are having many on the front line struggle for the space.
Okay, thank you so much. Now I can see, Doctor, you want to disqualify yourself.
Yes, I want to entirely disqualify myself from discussing that succession because I am hurting. I am hurting. The 2021 elections confirmed by the Kayunga, Ugandans did not vote Museveni. They did not. We did not. It was blatant military occupation of all polling stations. They failed in Uganda because of the social media, but up north, people were thrown in River Nile, and so one, by the way, we have never voted. You understand? So I cannot start talking of the succession of somebody we have not voted. And that is the position also of my party, and I know what happened. And so I disqualify myself from it. However, that side notwithstanding, the people of Uganda have spoken. The people of Uganda, why do you think people are being abducted?
So in other words, we should not be talking about succession.
Of what?
But who is
succession of what? Are we in the same Uganda?
What
my position is my party position. Yes, from experience. We do not. We know he stole our sacks. Allow me qualify myself. Please do not be on a hurry because this is a very sensitive matter and media can misquote me. That I was discussing comfortably Museveni's succession. That's why I have disqualified myself on it. And he stated it very well from the beginning. It has been either buying and so on, and now the militarization came when some of us demystified the issue of being bought. Okay? So it now was military occupation. of the and really disenfranchising Ugandans. So with that, we just say Ugandans, we need, yes, this is very good account really of why the stealing, the robbing, the disenfranchisation is going on. So there is evidence on record. Ugandans here, we need to read.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I would
you.
not go into asking the party position about who is
Please
currently
don't.
leading the country. Still, if we have 2 minutes for those, it would be unfair if we don't ask, for those who have been following us online, if they have questions, I would like to give them 2 minutes to ask their questions. If not, gentlemen, you can entertain this
Concluded.
session.
Thank you.
I respectfully disagree with my colleague, Dr. Zedriga. You know, an ostrich puts its head in shrubs. That does not mean that it is not visible. Actually, the behind part, which is bigger, remains the most visible. It is just that at that point of putting the head in the shrubs, it's just that it thinks that the head represents the whole of it. The truth of the matter is we can argue about state capture. We have on record a very rough history of stealing votes in Uganda, that it is now almost normal and it's painful. I have had a chance to interview very many young people that have lost ribs, that are going through a lot of trauma, that have been tortured because they support a particular candidate. And this has gone on for a long time. In the recent cycle, it was no. The other cycle, it was Kiza Besije.
Yeah.
And some of us who participated know clearly that you are almost in a war zone.
True.
You are in a war zone, you want to campaign, but you're also being hunted. So we understand that that's where we are, but also we must accept that we are under capture for us to fight and get ourselves out of this state capture.
So for you, in actual sense,
in actual sense, I understand her position and I respect it. But I'm saying we must view the body politic of our country the way it is. And when we have a proper knowledge, of what the problem is, then we can prescribe the best solution. And to me, and I want to be so clear that we are not going to develop as a country. We are not going to have peace in the actual meaning of peace that goes beyond silence of guns with this NRM junta. We cannot.
Okay, thank you. From there, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this interesting book review discussion, the Africa 2022 book review. Now, for those who have books and feel like we should really discuss your books, if you think your books are so impactful to the society, reach out to us and we see how we can discuss this. I've been George Justice Kanyamba, and with my interesting, you have something to say?
Yes. I have a simple comment about the succession.
Okay, briefly. And
I think that it is inevitable as a country to discuss a succession plan. Now we should away from President Museveni and who we think from the circles of President Museveni will succeed him. But we should put it in a broader perspective of the country, because I want to tell you, our country is bleeding. The 36 years of NRA so far has done us a lot of disservice. I want to tell you, there are many people who died in the north.
Too many.
In Iteso, in Mukura, very
Mass
many people
graves.
were tortured. Were killed.
Graves.
Recently in Kasese. So we are bleeding to the extent that there are some voices that have started coming up these voices are against a particular ethnic group. I do not think that it is healthy for us to break that line. I want to tell you, if you go to the western part of Uganda, basically Nankole and Chigezi, you will realize recently they were actually showing pictures of buildings of schools there, the roads. You realize that there is nothing that is much different in those areas that as compared to other parts of the country. But because President Museveni has, overstayed, it has become natural for one to believe that everybody who is Turia Singura, Turia Mujenda, Turia Kumanawe, that they are all well, which is not true. Now, we should speak about these things openly. Therefore, we need to have a conversation. We need, as a country, to discuss succession. In fact, we were to begin this discussion as early as yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would not, proceed from there. And I would like.
By the way, a disclaimer. Excuse me, a disclaimer. Mine is in relation to this book. It's not a generic thing that I talked about. Excuse me. I would like to be on the spot that I am not disqualifying or putting my head in the sand like an ostrich. The discussion, and with my behind, the old behind, excuse me. So, no. So, can you please allow me qualify, Justice, please, with due respect from what I have heard. And my conclusion is like, I do not want anything about the succession. But mine was about specifically Museveni succession. I disqualified myself from it. So I'm putting my record right. But for the other brother, absolutely. Absolutely. Not even at the national level only, even at the regional levels. Absolutely, I agree. But this other one, no. Thank you.
Dr. Lina Zedriga wa ku nsonga ezigenda maaso mu ggwanga ne bannayuganda bannamateeka bamanya ensonga. Engeri Mwai Museveni gyatuttemu eggwanga Uganda eba ngeri gyali kuttemu ebikolobero byakoze ku bannayuganda. Owulidde abantu bangi battiddwa mu ggwanga lya Uganda awatali musango. Abagambye Mukula mu Northern Uganda, ne bagambye Kasese, ne bagamba mu Buganda abantu abali mu kuwambibwa, ababuzibwa, abattibwa nga tewali musango just okuba nti bawagira Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi Wine. Nti ebikolobero bino gwe okusinziira okulaga gavumenti ya Museveni nti nno teriwo okulwa bannayuganda wabula yeeri olwa bigendererwa ebyabwe bo ng'abantu ne famire bye beeyagaliza era bye baloota okuba naye nga si byakuyamba bannayuganda. Nti n'olwekyo bwabanga Kyagulanyi yatatta omusango mu Koti Yensi Yona nga gwa kuvunaana Mwai Museveni famire ye ne mutabani we okuba nti batulugunya oba bakulembeddemu okutulugunya bannayuganda, nti ekyo kya nkizo nnyo era kirungi nnyo kubanga kino kijja kuteminga Mwai Museveni, kijja mumuzza mu line. Bwabuli lwanaagezaawo kwagala okubaako ekikolobero kyakola ate kamera zonna ziri ku Uganda olwaleero okwetegereza Mwai Museveni movements ze, ebikolwa bye ebikola bitya, era buli kikolebwa kiba kigenda direct automatically mu Koti Yensi Yona okwongera okumulumika n'okwongera okugeza obujulizi obukakase ebyo Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi Wine bye yawaddeyo. Bakulaze nti Mwai Museveni ye tali willing kuva mu ntebe mu mirembe era nga ajja kukola buli kyonna kyasobodde wansi w'enjuba okulaba ng'alemera mu ntebe era nga ye amanyi nti bw'anaava mu ntebe mutabani we yalina okumuddiramu. Kino Dr. Lina Zedriga waliwo agamba tekisoboka era tayinza nakirowoozaako n'omulundi n'ogumu kuba tekisaanidde. Tikuba bw'otunuulira Mwai Museveni byayisizaamu oba byakoze bannayuganda kate bw'otandika okulowooza ne ku mutabani we nti naye akkirizibwe oba aweebwe olukusa naye atandike ate okulembera eggwanga Uganda, olwo nti ate ki ekinaabaawo binaaba bitya, olwo Uganda muba mugenda kugiraba mutya, Uganda begenda kutambula etya, Uganda begenda kufuuka ki. N'olwekyo Munnayuganda gw'olina obuvunanyizibwa, gw'olina obuyinza ku nsi yo, gw'olina okusalawo kyoyagala olabe Uganda yo efaanane, kyoyagala olabe ensi yo ebe ku lw'abaana bo b'ozadde gye banaabeera, abazzukulu b'osuubira balina kubeerawa. Kati buvunaanyizibwa buli eri ggwe Munnayuganda. Ndaba okulaba nga olwanirira eggwanga Uganda, okulaba nga lifuna obukulembeze obwannamaddala, obukulembeze obufa ku bantu, obukulembeze obufa ku Uganda empya, so si kubamu nti no bo beegaggawaze babeere bulungi n'ate nga balala bali mu kubonaabona. Uganda bwe bityo ebintu tulina okuba nga tubiteeka mu bantu bamanye bategeere ekituufu ekiri mu ggwanga lyaffe era kye tulina okukola okwejja mu mbeera ng'eno. Kati gwe ali eyo wenna kimanye nti obuvunaanyizibwa bubwo okukyusa Uganda, okufuna Uganda eyeeyagaza, okufuna Uganda ey'emirembe, okufuna Uganda erina demokrasiya, Uganda etalimu kulya nguzi. Kuba wulidde bagambye nti IGG n'avaayo n'agamba nti so and so balya enguzi so tusaana tubakwateko, ate Mwami Museveni n'avaayo n'agamba va ku bali b'enguzi bange. Kiba kitegeeza awagira okulya enguzi. Obuli bw'enguzi abuwagira nnyo ate ya protecting ababbi abalya enguzi. So kino kiba kyongera okusuula eggwanga wansi mu ntata, naye obuvunaanyizibwa bwonna budda eri ggwe Munnayuganda, nti ggwe ovunaanyizibwa okusobola ng'otaasa ensi yo. Mwenna abaddeko mbaagala nnyo, mwebale kubaako, mwebale kutwagala. Omukama Katonda nsaba bankuumire, tujja kuba tuddamu okwogera ebigambo n'okutuusa amawulire gonna agali mu gunsimu, omusobole okutambula n'okumanya n'okutegeera biki ebiri mu ggwanga lyaffe. Omukama Katonda abankuumire, mweraba.